Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am Jason Bach. This is a Random Code stream, and I was deciding yesterday that this is the last time I'm going to do it on a Monday morning. It was a interesting idea, but I think I'm going to move this to Sunday morning and probably start it a little later. This is kind of brutal to get up this early, even for me, and I'm an early riser. So even with the coffee. And by the way, if you see on the mug here, you see like a half M here. This is the company I used to work for. I worked for them for about 20 years. They were called Magenic, and they are no more. They got bought last year, and they got bought after I left and joined Rocket. But yeah, the mug itself, it's funny because I don't know if I mentioned this before, but they used to have this really old kind of crappy logo in the 90s before I joined. And it used to be like a full image here. And I guess the mugs that they got, the quality wasn't the greatest. And they, that you'd wash them and this side of it would just disappear. So you ended up with this. And early on in my tenure there, I borrowed this mug. I just kept it. So, and I've had it ever since. So it's a kind of a nice, thing just to have, one of those things that I'll never sell on eBay, not because I'd make a lot of money on it, because I wouldn't, but it's just one of these things that very, very few people have. The crappy old Magenic mug. Okay, so what am I going to do this morning? We're going to be working on some performance stuff, hopefully. And I'll get into that in a moment. Did I want to show this? Yeah. Excuse me. One good thing, though, about doing this on a Monday morning is that I do have to time constrain myself. I definitely have to be done by, I'd say 7:15 my time. I get to have some very fun dental work done this morning, so I'm looking forward to that. Yay. Really, really pounding on the coffee this morning. Okay. Yeah, let's show this. So let's go over to this view. There we go. So again, this is the instant API stuff that Jeff Fritz has been working on. He did put in my my PR that I did yesterday, which was just adding some information here with the the source generator approach. One thing I noticed is I have tabs here and up here. That is one thing I use. I use tabs when I'm coding, and I personally like that a lot better. But the one thing I will admit is that in things like Markdown, it tends to not look as well, and probably should follow the same thing that is being done in the other projects. But small thing in the code, I just copy and pasted this in here, and then I saw it later. I'm like, that's not it's just inconsistent, and my eyes notice it. Excuse me, but yeah, so that's now in there. One thing I do want to mention is, well, one thing I have to keep watching this, make sure that I keep parity with the source generator approach if any other changes come in. But the other thing is, and Jeff was doing this yesterday, is this one PR that somebody did called enabling multiple data providers. It was basically trying to come up with an approach to use iRepository, which that would be like you'd have specific implementations done, I think, and then the instant API would just use their iRepository. Maybe. Point is, this person, and I bring this up because I think it's a good lesson to keep in mind if you're contributing to an open source project is, nothing against this person that did it. They actually did a lot of work, but that was kind of the problem is it seemed a little bit too intrusive. Like it was changing too much. And that's one thing. If you're going to submit a PR to any open source project, need to make sure that one, there's an issue you can tie it to, which in this case there is. But I would also reach out to the person or the people that are maintaining the project and say, hey, do you mind if I work on this? you know, one thing is you don't want two or more people to come in on the same issue and submit PRs. And now it's like, well, how do you pick from both? And it's not to say you don't want people maybe to work on something together. I think it's just a good thing to do, just to reach out and say, hey, I've got this idea that I think I could do to handle this issue. What do you think? That's actually what I did with the source generator thing here. I just reached out to Jeff and I said, hey, I think I could do this. Would you mind if I gave it a shot? And that's how it got in. The one thing that also, and this is not also the case every time, but I was able, as you can see, all these generator projects here and this one here, his stuff is just these two projects. And then the JSON stuff is here. You can, try to keep it separate too. And in my case, I did this deliberately because I definitely wanted to keep it separate from what the reflection approach is, so that there isn't kind of this weird case where you've got both of them in there. And I don't know. I just felt it was better to do it that way. So just a tip, if you're going to submit a PR to a project, contributions are always a good thing. I wish I would get actually some from the stuff I work on, but especially if it's not going to be minor, just reach out to them and say, hey, what do you think of this? And maybe propose what you want to do. If it's a proof of concept, maybe not make it a PR, maybe make it your own repository that shows what you're doing. And you could say, hey, I've got this. Do you mind if I submit this or something like that, to give people a chance to review it? Otherwise, it feels like you've done a lot of work, and could it potentially just be rejected outright? I don't think Jeff rejected it. He just said, there's a lot going on here. Can you pare it down and not change so much that's in the current repository? Okay. All right. So that's that. Let's go back here. I've mentioned this before. This is the benchmark test that they have that this person put together for a lot of mocking libraries. My rocks one on the constructor one is not number one. And like I've said before, I want to see if I can try to change this, because on all the other ones, it does, it's the best for some definition of best. So I want to see if I can actually get this to be a little bit smaller. And the one thing I'm kind of a little concerned about is when I do this and I run these tests, that I've noticed that in StreamYard, which is what I'm using right now, the camera starts getting a little glitchy. Now, apparently my voice doesn't. That doesn't break up, but my camera will, because it's doing a lot of processing power. I don't know. I'm thinking of maybe at some point in the future investing in a desktop and actually seeing if that is much better for streaming. So what I would also like is, I have a decent-ish connection in my house. It works just fine for pretty much everything I do. It would be nice to have something that's all right. And then I used to have one console up here to do some performance tests. Oh, yeah. All that. Okay. So how do I want to reference this? I want to reference it because I want as a such that the analyzer is actually not the analyzer. The generator is going to kick in. Okay. And be able to generate some code here. And then I want to take that code and then actually then I think I want to change the reference so it's no longer a generator. Like I'll flip it back and forth, but I'll take that generated code and then keep tweaking it for whatever things I want to try out. So the case here with the construction, if I go back to the code, benchmarks, construction. It is just an I thing. What is the I thing is like really simple. It's like one method, I think. Oh no, it's a couple. So we want to do that as well. We want to mimic that. So let's put in AI. Come on. It said unnecessary usings. Okay, so we got that. And then we want here. So what are we doing in the integration tests? We're doing something like this. Yeah. There we go. So now if I said here var thing. Oh, you don't know what that is. Okay. Okay. You're building one thing. There you go. So let's see in dependencies. What? Oh, you're actually running it. Okay. I didn't expect it to. I thought I just said build. I didn't think I actually said run. Maybe I did. Yeah, it's early. It's early. Rocks. Create generator. You shouldn't. Yeah, you're not doing anything there. Okay. So we have this code. And this is actually what I want to kind of steal. Yeah. So what do we want to call this? We want to call this that's fine. File. Call it iThing generated. So now we actually have the code, and yes, it's barking because I've actually generated it, and there's all these collisions. Oh, and now it's gonna. Yeah, I'm being stupid. We still need to reference it. Don't reference it as analyzer, just a normal project. Except what did I just break? Can you not do that? All right, whatever. Now this should all still be there, and there shouldn't be a collision of anything. Oh, yeah, that doesn't have. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, come on, just take your sweet time. Take your sweet time. Why is this taking so long to compile? Yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't know what any of these are. And this one as well. There you go. Okay. I'll take these out of here. One thing I'm also realizing by this isn't quite what I am hoping for. Because some of these things that I want to change are actually in like this method expectations. If I do this, which is now this, and it's a base here. Okay. Yeah. So one thing I was thinking of is maybe this isn't quite the way I want to do it. I might want to say run some kind of performance test as the baseline and let's see what we get. And hopefully, what we get is something that's very close to what I saw here with the numbers. I mean, it's not going to be exactly this because it's different hardware, it's a different machine. Hopefully, the allocations is the same, but just get a baseline, but then actually come into the code here and change it, and then say, well, what do we get now? And yeah, so let's kind of keep track of a little bit of what are some of the things that happen when you do this path. So if I say rock.create, let's get rid of a little bit of the noise here. That in turn just makes a new expectation. That in turn, when I new this up, that is going to that's a method, that's a 2. What we have here is handlers and mocks, and these are both a dictionary and a list. And we both knew those up that way. Now, one thing I was going to do is .NET. I mentioned last time in the stream, so I say list key, that when you just create a list is now, this is also something I don't think this I believe is the latest code. There is no way to say, hey, I want to see this basically as based on the branch that you're on or something like that. But the way that it's currently coded up is that when you create a list, it's going to be equal to the static read only s empty array. Okay. But then as they mentioned here, adding the first element to the list, it's increased to the default capacity. And then it's increased in multiples of 2 as required. Okay. So I could look through all this code and figure out how much is that doubling consistent, whether you pass in a capacity or you don't, or you pass in an enumerable. If I say dictionary here, same logic. So you give it a capacity of 0 and a quality compare of null. So then you call initialize. Oh, you only call it if it was greater than 0. Okay, which makes sense. So they're also doing something and saying if you new up a dictionary but you don't pass anything in, it's basically going to say its initial capacity is 0. But we know this isn't that. I mean, if you're going to be making a mock, you're going to be, for one thing, you're going to, as I come into here to program, and I say instance, and that instance calls mocks and it calls add, we know we know that this is going to be, oh, and wait a minute, let me come back here. I go back here. No, I went too far. It doesn't, well, that wasn't very friendly. Okay, so if I say here, this of t, and what's the default capacity? 4. So when you add 1, if you started at 0, you're automatically going to jump to 4. And then you go to 8 and 16 and 32 and so on. Okay. I don't know if the same rules apply for the dictionary. It wasn't as obvious, but we know we're going to have at least 1, right? And probably 2. This one, and this is something I also was thinking about as a side issue. What happens if you call instance more than once on what your expectations are? Because you're typically going to set up expectations like this. You're going to say methods dot, do something or do nothing. And then, so you're basically saying, I expect do nothing to be called once. You can say call count and say, I expect it to be called 3 times, and that's fine as well. Okay. So what happens though if I say instance and then I make another one? It will reference the expectations that you have here, but it doesn't like double them or copy them or anything like that. It just says, I'm making another mock off of these expectations, but those expectations are what I'm passing into here. Now the handlers, what are the handlers doing? I say, I just say, do I not call this? I won't do that. I'm never calling it anymore. Yeah, this is a side thing, a side issue in that I have to see once you call instance, should I actually be calling this create handlers thing? But even if I did, you're just passing the references around. You're not making like new instances of all these handlers. And the reason why this could be a problem is if you create more than one of these, you start calling like I would call on this chunk dot do nothing. Now I've set the expectation that I've called it once. But if I made var chunk 2 equals that, and then I say thing and actually I don't think I just keep pulling this off and putting it back on again without having to restart Visual Studio, I don't think. Which this is going to get into a conflict because it's going to see this and go, yeah. I want to comment all that out. Because I don't think there's anything that I do in the generated code that I would actually do any different. I don't think that's where the so let's just shut this down and start it up again. That's one of the things times before in videos that I've done that I do not like about source generators is authoring them. It's very much a pain in the butt. Very much a pain in the butt. I wish it just worked like any other project. You could reference stuff and things just worked, but that's not the way it goes. So will this actually yeah, we get an exception. Um, that's one of the things I got to rename or I got to redo the exceptions because they're not very descriptive. This is the verification exception. Why is it not verifying? It's because you're actually making two instances of this. You're calling it twice, which is not what you want. That's a side issue. Um, that's one of these things where I might say, hey, if you create an instance off of your expectations, then you really should not be able to create another one off of those expectations. Make another rock, set the expectations there, and then instance off of that. Which, if I would do that, this is where it actually comes into a performance thing, because the instance here would say, well, add to your mocks. And this mocks is, well, okay, fine, it can't. We could potentially get rid of this because we're never calling it. Which isn't the big deal. The big deal here is mock. I could make this a nullable iMock. And then say here in the instance method, if on the self, the mock is already set, throw an exception. But if it's not, then you set that to this, and then you return. So that would get rid of a list allocation that would jump to 4. I could make this, though, let me get rid of this file here because I really don't need it. I could make, getting lost here. Yeah, I could make down here this where I say new of like 1 or 2. So at least I know I'm going to cut that down a little bit and make that smaller. But I'm kind of thinking that, okay, so one of the takeaways here is expectations. Expectations great handlers. Doesn't seem like it's called. And probably get of it. Make this a T and check in the instance calls that if it's not null, throw some kind of exception. You can only make a mock off of expectations once, which to me makes sense. I really don't see why you'd ever not do that. Okay. In the interest of what I want to look at right now, though, I think one thing that would help me to see, is this going to be going down the right path, is just changing this to a 1, because all I'm doing in my code right now is saying, actually, in the demo code, not the demo code, in the benchmark mocknet, is all this is doing is literally that. Yep. So let's start actually mocking. Well, not mocking. Let's actually start doing some performance tests. So I can get that to run and go get some coffee quick and come back. So let's go to manage NuGet packages. And let's say, Why is that showing up as a because output item type makes it think it's a NuGet package? Oh, it's the local source. Yeah, we don't want that. Benchmark dot. I don't know why they don't move to a 1 point. This thing has been out there for years and it's still like 0.13.1. And I don't get that, but whatever. Okay, so let's here add a new class. Um, call it construction. Come on, construction performance. Yep. And let's make sure that we're in release. Yes, we are, because that's a thing. It actually is a thing. If you have never used benchmark.net, your build has to be in release mode. It won't let you run it in debug, which I actually kind of like. Benchmark public I thing create. What is this going to do? Rock create I thing. Nope. Nope. Instance. And that's it. That's all it does. But don't you like it? Yeah, shut up. That's one of the things that I don't think in benchmark you can actually make these static. I don't think it allows you to do that. Like, I don't think you can do this. So let's just try. It's early in the morning. Let's see if it tries. Yeah, let's take this off. Let's say bench runner. Yep. Dot run construction. Yeah, you need to do this formats. Come on. And you should know what that is, right? I'm not spelling it right. Yeah, I probably wasn't spelling it right. Yeah, what are you barking at? Yeah, static types cannot be. So I think what I end up doing is an editor configure my performance projects that say, the analyzer is doing the right thing and that's telling me, hey, make it static. I get why, but this is a benchmark thing that it doesn't let you pass in static classes. So why was that happening, by the way? If I said static here, what was the... Oh, it is. It's a compiler thing. It's probably saying you need a new, which means in turn it has to be creatable, which means it can't be static. Okay, I'm guessing that's what that rule means. Okay, let's just see. So actually, I'll be right back. And I gotta remember to turn my mic back on. I'm gonna let this run, and then if it actually runs, I'm gonna quick run and get some more coffee, and then I'll be back and we'll see the results. So don't go anywhere. I will be right back. Let's see if this actually starts running. And do you run? I want to just make sure it starts doing stuff. I believe it is. All right. Well, I'll be right back. I'll be back. Just coffee. Don't go. Okay, I unmuted. Thank you. Now you're unmuted. I thought I unmuted, but I recognize it fast enough. Now, this is not going to be quite fair because I'm streaming. I've got, you know, processors running. I got Visual Studio running, all this other stuff. So it's not going to be that fair of a comparison, but it's the best I can do. I mean, ideally, what I would want is to actually run this on a different machine or something like that while I'm streaming to see what the values are. But that is not the case. Would be nice if I could probably turn this so that it only runs it like 1,000 times or 10,000 times or something like that. Because I don't want to sit here all the time and see how long it takes. Oh, crap. Well, I just forgot something. I want to say here. Come on, you can do it. I totally forgot to do that. Crap. Yeah. Well, we'll let it run again. How's your life going, people? Anybody out there? How's your day? Watching somebody run a benchmark test. That's really exciting. What? I did rebuild. Right? I did rebuild. Why is this taking forever? It's not that complicated. Okay. Run it again. To the matrix. I don't know what else to say. So now I gotta fill the time while this is flying by with a whole bunch of numbers. What could I talk about? Well, here's a book. Kentucky. Actually, this came up last week because we started going into acronyms and how they're named in your libraries. And I mentioned this book. You can see it through the glares, framework design guidelines. Because I actually looked up on there and said, well, what's the rules that they recommend? And the rules are, if it's a 2-letter acronym, then you keep it all capitalized. If it's a 3-letter acronym or more, then you do Pascal casing. And then they also have a lot of commentary in there that say, yeah, but you may find cases, like especially in some cryptography classes, where they don't follow that. They say, yeah, that's a mistake. In fact, I remember it's like in page 50 something. Is that where they talk about it? Yeah. The types RSA, DSA, DES are all caps. There's some sort of exception to the rule when it comes to cryptographic or other algorithm names. There isn't. Those names are just mistakes. So. But again, it's one of those things of naming is hard. Now, what's interesting is I believe this actually came up with the same, 224. Okay. So let's keep some history here. Okay. First run as is. We get that. Okay. Fine. Now let's come into here and then let's not go too, because I don't want to go yet to the point where I'm going to change what the generated code is going to do. What I can do here is say in expectations is make this so that we only get one there. Okay. Because we know we're going to need at least one. If you're going to make a mock, you're going to be making expectations. The intent is to eventually make this a nullable mock, and that's going to take some more code in terms of more effort to actually go into the generated code to fix that. But that's okay. This branch actually is a throwaway, and that I just wanted to come in here and say, where can I find the improvements? And once I find them, then actually make an issue, make a branch for that issue, address it, push out a new package, on and on and on. Okay, so what happens both with speed and performance if I change it so that we're just going to start with one? And then when you add to it, it's not going to change the capacity just yet. It's not going to do a reallocation. It's just going to, it's initially going to allocate an array for size 1. You'll add to that, so pass it in as a 0th element, and then we move on. So let's see what this does. Now, from a performance standpoint, this won't be, I mean, my guess is it will be a little bit faster. We should definitely see a change in memory allocation. Okay. Speaking of performance, here's another book, Add Time from Jason Bach. No. So we're talking about performance. This is another good book. I know I'm getting all the glare from my lights, but there, that's the Pro.NET benchmarking. Andre Akinshin. Hopefully I said that right. Really good book. It's funny because it's actually slightly getting dated. Not too bad, but a little bit. It's getting a little bit dated. Oh, crap. Wait a minute. Hold on. Stop. I think I have to shut down and start up again. I don't know if this is actually going to be showing up in the reference or not. Let's just, because of how source generators and project references work, I don't know if it's actually going to pick that up or not. Okay. So let's just shut down and start up again, just to be safe, just to be correct. And as a side note, I just realized if I say you can have one and only one mock for an expectation set, and then I throw exception, there's going to be a little bit more code that will happen here. Like I'll have to say if self.mock is not null, then I'll do that. I'll only throw the exception in the case of where you've done it more than once, which is hopefully atypical, hopefully something that people haven't done with it anyway, and you wouldn't notice. It's not an interface breaking change. It's just an implementation thing, but it's the right thing because you should only really be making one. And then if you actually already tried to do it once, it would throw an exception and say, can only create one instance of a mock from an expectation type or something like that, whatever the message is. I just mentioned that I don't like my messages for my exceptions, and I'm kind of blowing off what the exception should be here, the message. Anyway, okay, so where was I? Yeah, we were just changing this to be 1. Okay, so let's build it again. And we should definitely see a change, at least in the memory allocation. Okay. Oh, I was mentioning about the book. Yeah. So that book, I don't want to say it's dated, like the information is bad. It's just, I think it was targeting .NET Core. Is it 2.2 or 3.1? I can't remember. I definitely don't think it was targeting. I don't think .NET 5 was out by the time this was published. When was the publishing date on this? 2019. Yeah. So .NET 6 came out last year, 2021. .NET 5 was 2020. So yeah, the most it could have done, I think, is Core 3.1. And what's interesting about the book is that it's actually, it does talk about benchmark.net, but it talks about benchmarking in general and all the things that you need to keep in mind with benchmarking. So it's not that that's bad. I think I had my expectations set a little bit that it would be talking more about the ins and outs of benchmark.net, and that's not quite what it's doing. Still, highly recommend the book. I hope this is a book that kind of gets additions like the Framework Design Guidelines book that I mentioned before, that it keeps evolving over time, because I think it's a good one, and that's something that developers should learn more about. I should learn more about with um, making sure my code is fast and less allocatey. It's very easy to, I say easy, but well, yeah, you can do things that sometimes you go, oh yeah, this runs and my tests all pass, but is this actually the most performant way to write something? Okay, so what do we get? Well, we got better. I got better. Box property initialized with one. So notice that our time went down a little bit, and we're allocating a little bit less. Yeah. Now, one other thing is we are also saying the dictionary here is just an arbitrary 0, which we're not allocating, which in this case is kind of funny because it actually works out better that way. But the reality is, in most cases, well, in virtually all cases, let's say you're going to be having a capacity. You're going to have at least one handler. What's funny though is that in this test, we don't make a handler. We just simply create something. So we would be actually allocating the dictionary to have one. Is that really what we want to help in this test? I think I might just leave that as is for now. We did improve a little bit, not much, but we did knock this down by a little bit. Okay. So what would happen if the rock create actually just use up one of these? Oh, who's calling this? Nobody? No. No, I said, who's calling this? Expectations. Oh, if I say 2, okay. So we'd have to keep that there. And then this would actually have to be but that would fall through if I change that to that. Okay. Would it actually be speedier if I changed this so that it's actually just a I mock of mocks as a nullable? It would require this to change. Though this is internal. And the only place 2 would be is that it would pass in this .mock. It would change when we're doing an instance. What does that look like when I do an instance? Builders, create. Now the make is different. The make, we don't keep the mocks around. Mock. Yeah, here. I think that's the only place. Yeah, I do this. So this would have to change to say, have like an if here. Can I do that? Is it 652? I think I could. I think this would, well, that's why I'm making a branch. I think this would actually help. Because we wouldn't have a list. We wouldn't have the overhead of a list. We really should only be making one. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do this. Okay. So the expectations here, we're going to make this a mock. Okay. And that changes to that. That changes to that. Except this actually becomes, it makes the verify a little faster. Now we would say that. Mark in that because now it's going to say, that's going to be wrong because, oh no, it will. Fine, fair enough. Okay. This is mock. There. This is that all. Okay, and then here what we need to say is dot red line if self dot mock is null. Okay. Writer, the red line. Actually, let's copy and paste those. So if it's null, we're going to say self mock doesn't add equal to mock or return it. So that's an assignment. It's no longer an add. It's a little bit more performance. Writer dot right line else. I'm going to do something horrible for now. Line. Oh, new exception. This is bad. Escape out. Remember off the top of my head. There. And you need the only create a new mock once. And the message will be better. Okay, now this is going to break all of my tests, my unit tests, because now I'm suddenly putting in all this extra code here. What it shouldn't do is break all the integration tests. So we could reload, just say run the integration tests. Those should all pass, right? And then we could run the performance test and see if they got any faster. And then if this is all good, then I'll remember this and then redo it for the actual real code. And I think that'd be a good time to stop. Okay, so let's shut down and start up again. And by shutting down and restarting up again, if there was a problem with the generated code, we see it right away. And we just run those tests. Okay. Okay. So come on. Start lighting up all the colors, which means you're finally there. Okay. So let's build this first. Let's see if we're going to get any build errors, which means that the generated code that we did is all messed up and I forgot a parentheses or something like that. Else throw an exception, we put a comma. So mock. And there's the one good thing is that I'm implicitly only targeting like .NET 6. Oh, yeah. See? I have to make it settable. What it should do though is allow this code to compile because this, well, no, it might be loaded it already and it won't work. I might have to restart it. If this is true though, I'll go through all the errors and see if there's anything else that I inadvertently missed. Yeah, that was interesting with the way I had the property before. Now, see, now it's okay. So it succeeded. That's good. Let's go into the integration tests and let's say run these. And let's see if those all run. And then the real kicker will be run the performance test and see if that made any difference. Yeah, they did. Okay. You see it down there. Okay. So the performance test. Do I have another book around here? Do I have another book? Nope, I don't. Well, that's a lie. I've got a whole bunch of books over there, but nothing I can reach really easily to say, hey, read this. Read this. Got a bunch of stickers I could show. Just trying to pass the time. Like, what can I actually show here? This is like one of the first times I actually did a presentation using benchmark.net. I actually ran it during the presentation and I knew it would take time. So I had a list of programmer jokes to tell while I was waiting, which was fine. It kept the time from not being just dead air and just sitting there waiting. But it also, I realized, yeah, that's something I don't want to repeat in the future. So I think this is Jeff Fritz's little sticker. I don't put stickers on my computer very often. I just keep them and I don't actually ever Iron Man bike ride. You got a participation trophy. Yay. I got some N unit stickers, which I really like. This is just one of, oh, this is a, so now the N unit sticker, got that. And I've got this old Visual Studio sticker. That's nice. Oh, do you see that? Do you see? This is probably the winner. Winner, chicken dinner. Not Max, but Mock. Oh, I think I got a winner here. Nice. That will be nice. And that will mean that rocks. God, I keep dropping all my stickers that are in here because there's some smaller ones in there. That is cool because that's what's the math? 3640. It's at least twice as fast as what it used to be, and it allocates half the memory. If I come back here, yeah, and the memory part was what we were actually a little bit more 224. I'll be down to 136. I'll actually be PCL mock, And if this ratio holds with the performance, I should be at or where PCL mock is. I should be at it or under it. This is a glorious Monday. And I'm going to stop here because I think this is a great place to stop. I'm going to off camera I'll go into Rocks and I'll make an issue for myself. I'll do it. I'll put the PR in and, and make another package. But yeah, I like this. This was definitely productive. Definitely productive. I'm really, really, really happy. So yeah. So that is all for today. For all the people that showed up, thank you very much for either watching the stream live or watching it later on YouTube. I will be changing the calendar again. I'm going to start doing this one on Sunday morning, probably starting 7:30-ish Central Time on Sunday morning. And then I'll also be doing a stream Thursday night at 8:15-ish on Thursdays. So if you haven't subscribed, followed, whatever the things are and all the streaming points, please do so. If you got any questions, just send them along my way, put a comment in the video, whatever the case may be. But that is all for today. So again, thank you all for watching, showing, attending, and I will hopefully see you on Thursday night.